Hello, and welcome to the Storied Arcs podcast. I am your co-host, Mike.
And I'm your co-host, Alex.
And today we are doing our book club style deep dive into 8 Billion Genies. Last week we covered the Zero episode, talked about the creators, and specifically, kind of covered the broad strokes beats of the story with no spoilers. Spoiler ban is lifted, and we are now digging straight into this comic. And the first thing, I just opened one of page basically at random here. One thing that I meant to talk about, and it doesn't really seem like it matters in the order, but the art here. And I mentioned in the Zero how the art for the genies on the front cover kind of drew me in. And I think they know that it's a hook because it's very prominently on the cover for each one. But I'm looking at a splash page here very early in the first issue, and it has two genies that are very large. And it looks to me like all of the colors for our main characters' background settings, things like that, were done analog, and the color for the genies was done digitally. You think there's any possibility that that's how this was done? Like, I don't see any way that celestial star background was that consistent, that done that way without being digital. So I'm kind of wondering if he had scanned in actual paintings with white areas to then be taken up by the genies digitally.
I don't know.
It's just one of those things that made me scratch my head, and you just kind of get hung up on the beauty of it each time.
Well, I think in general, though, the way, obviously the way the genies are drawn and they stand out, it is a specific and different style than Browne's character work. His character work is very distinctive. It's pretty heavily shaded. There are a decent amount of lines there. It's obviously not realistic. It's not photorealistic, but there is a specific intent there. And obviously the genies are meant to glow and be this ethereal thing, but it does look like they're created from a different medium, Whether that's the case or not, whether it's all digital or whatnot, I don't know.
Well, it might be more impressive if it was all analog. I mean, the whole book might be digital, and he just did a different.
I think he's all digital.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know for certain, but yeah, the genie design is one of the truly, truly great things about the book. The way that they're all slightly different because they're all
right.
They all are meant to quasi reflect the person that they're attached to,
Right.
And all of that.
If you're wearing a backpack, your genie has a backpack. If you have glasses, they have glasses.
And same kind of glasses. It's going to be dressed the same kind of way. He's wearing a t-shirt, a suit, or something like that. So
they know you. They know your intention.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's one of the really, really cool things about the setup here, making that very specific. In that, how many times in the book, especially early on, do they reference monkey paw situation?
Right.
So that's such a trope of any sort of genie-driven, wish-given story. Is you make a wish and then the genie or whatever takes it literally, not what you mean, as a way to punish you for your wish, right? The way that your hubris of making a wish. And so the fact that these genies make it very clear, and it's also that like they'll work with you. Like if you have a wish, like you can sit and like you can workshop your wish,
I love how did you watch the D&D movie?
Oh yeah.
The necromancer scene. Where they only get the 4 questions and the guy inserts himself into every answer. They all count against you. I love how you like they're not trying to trick you in that way.
Yes. No.
They will answer questions. They can even give you information about what's going on in the world. What other people have done with their wishes. Which all seem like rule bending. Now maybe I'm just thinking of like the Robin Williams genie in Aladdin.
Sure.
I can't really give you any other advantages other than what you specifically wish for.
Well, and I think that's what I like about this setup is that it has a very defined set of rules, but they're not the super strict rules. Yeah, they can say, hey, what's going on? And and I guess because the genies do have a level of agency. They talk about, listen, like,
Yes.
we're not going to grant any wishes that we think are going to destroy everything. But sometimes if a wish is done really, really well, perfectly, there's no loophole. If everyone wishes for the same thing, well, they're just going to cancel out and you lost your wish. Too bad. You should have wished better. They have some agency. They give information about the world kind of when they want. What was I have to go, but do you have the first issue up again?
I do, yeah.
When one of the genies they talk about, they don't do anything that's going to destroy the entire world, like unless it's like funny or silly or interesting or ironic or something like that, So again, it shows the idea that these genies have a little bit of agency. They have some discretion there. And again, I like the idea that you could sit with your genie and say, this is what I want to happen. How can I make this wish happen? And you can workshop it, you can talk to it, and again, your intention matters. And so you can sit and you can really work on it, on your idea, before you actually say your wish. And of course, that's taken to the extreme with the idea man and his room or like building full of lawyers, where apparently he can be speaking for literal hours making a wish.
Right. Yes. I mean, he filibusters a genie, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
You just ram it through.
Yeah.
So the first wish that we see, we now know is a very interesting twist.
Yeah.
Because the genie gets a genie.
Yeah.
Our barkeeper was the last genie from the last time around, and there have been, is it 8 cycles? It would seem only right that there were 8 cycles.
I think it was 8 cycles. Yeah.
So there were 8 cycles where Earth has reached 8 billion people, done a hard reset.
Hard reset, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he does this wish. I wish that no wish made outside this bar can affect this bar or anyone or anything inside of it. And his genie says, done, enjoy the show.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's so interesting in light of where the series ends.
Yeah.
Everything this guy has been through, which it's got to be issue 6 or 7, where we follow his journey, from being born into being a human.
No, that's issue 8.
It's issue 8. Okay.
Yeah.
I knew it was toward the end.
Yeah. That's the beginning of issue 8, where it is, now,
did that remind you of that issue/episode of The Sandman, where you see him living through centuries at a time? Who was it?
Hob Gadling?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
It felt like a very familiar comic concept.
Oh yeah,
to have this immortal character living through the ages.
Yeah.
And see him, trying all of these different forms of hedonism and fulfillment and things like that, where it's like, I engaged with the people at the time. He also caused the plague.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to switch to the next page and he was going to assassinate Franz Ferdinand.
Yeah.
So I thought, oh man, they could have had a lot of fun with that. That could have been its own miniseries, like Splinter Off.
Well, that could have been the entire issue. The whole issue could have been him trying to figure out humanity, and again, doing things like the Black Plague or whatever because he knows what's coming. He knows that if the population gets back towards 8 billion, the genie's going to come in. So he wants to. It's like he's trying to solve humanity before then. So yeah, there could have been a whole thing of him trying these things, meddling, as it were, in humanity to try and figure it out. But yeah, no, that kind of journey, the idea of having a whole life, having an infinite lifetime to try to figure out what it means to live, to be alive. Yeah, that's not just a comic trope. Yeah, that's a literary device right there, a literary trope.
Yeah. And I think the power of this series is birthed in this first issue. He gives himself all the runway he needs with the characters he sets up. The 3-person band with the Wasted Wish, So we get to see that immediately,
Yep.
which explains how, you know, the first 8 seconds, the numbers dwindle down by the first 8 minutes
Yeah.
Significantly,
Mhm.
because people are just impulsive. She wishes that Brian would love her,
Yeah.
but that's
But
canceled
Brian,
out by the
yeah,
wish. So that's a clever way
but
to teach us the mechanics
yes, yeah,
of canceling out wishes.
because Daisy happened to be outside in the parking lot, and Brian was inside of the
While
bar.
Alex is confessing his love for her.
Yes, yeah.
And
So you get a quick, so you understand. Okay, so as long as you're in the bar, you said can't be affected by it.
Right.
Yeah,
And then they walk past the drunk dad,
Mhm.
who's grieving the loss of his wife, and his son
Mhm.
comes in. And meanwhile, you've got the family that doesn't even speak English,
Yeah.
and is in the wrong bar.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So again, what you get there though with Robbie and his dad, you get introduced to the remnant.
Right.
The idea of what is you already mentioned Aladdin and Rob Williams' genie. What do you say? He can't bring someone back to life. Well,
Right.
These genies can't either. They can bring back a form of that, and again, they last as long as the person who wished them to be alive. So we get that idea, and then with the Chinese couple, we get the idea of, she's pregnant when G-Day happens, meaning that her child will have a genie with her, and we see it. As the time goes by, you see the genie kind of grow and get you get like a baby or a toddler genie, and we see it grow with her. So we have this idea that that the children get them as well, even the ones that aren't capable of like speech and communication.
Right. Well, that
get
and
that idea as well.
The genies kind of have a rule of like, here's when they'll be able to use it, and it's not a set limit. It is based on the person. And so, I mean, I think the legal mind of Charles Soule probably considered including more details on that, but that's the type of hard world building that he doesn't really do. This is soft world building. This is to communicate kind of art and philosophy rather than run thought experiments, ad nauseum.
Yeah.
I was like, well, what if someone's in a vegetative state? There's 8 billion people, 8 billion genies. When do they get to use their genie? Can their genie read their intent, which is to not be in that state? Does that constitute a wish? What happens? Or do they die so quickly from the stupidity of other people's wishes that
they never get to use theirs?
Right. They never get to use theirs.
Yeah. But again, he's not concerned about those specifically, but what they are doing is they're setting up elements that are going to be, they're going to revisit down the line. The idea of, reacting to the impulsive wish that's wasted. The idea of again, the remnants, dealing with children and we see that with Robbie, the 12-year-old boy there who wishes himself into a superhero. And we find that, yes, this is a wish of like every kid at that age,
although a lot more supervillains than I expected. And I was like, I wonder if people wished to become a villain or if they wished for powers and it revealed their inner villainy.
Could be
probably a bit of both.
Probably
some of the skill sets were being wished for were like, I don't think you have like, chainsaw arms or something if you intend to be a hero.
Probably not. But I think also it's just that, people are pretty screwed up. Like we're pretty sick. So,
yes, and that definitely comes through.
It does.
As one of the points of the book. And I think he has kind of a similar worldview to, I don't know, like a Mark Russell, where it's like, look at humanity, society, systems as a whole, kind of disgusted, disappointed, rampant stupidity, unchecked evil, but look at the interpersonal dynamic and look at people on a person-to-person basis, and you see a lot of good in them, which, that was something George Carlin always said too, was he said, I've never met a person I didn't like, but I hate people. It's like,
no,
Okay.
I think that's
I
a
know
really
what he
good
means.
Yeah, I think that's a really good comp to Russell, because you think about the premise of this book is as the bartender slash former genie mentions. He says, yeah, listen, this happens every time we get around 8 billion. Like, the whole point is to cull the population, meaning that, like, they understand that this is going to happen, and a whole bunch of people are going to die or kill themselves or get killed or whatnot, because it's like they're dumb enough that they're going to wish for stupid things that's going to result in the deaths of millions of people, billions of people. And we're good with that, because that's the whole point. And then it's going to reset and we're going to start over again. It's like we're caught in this cycle here. But so, yeah, that is that's a pretty pessimistic view, again, of humanity and people, and understanding that when given the chance, the vast majority of them are going to choose, like, the worst possible outcome, follow the worst possible impulse. Right. But,
or at least, at least the most selfish one, which we see from Daisy, which was like, he's like, I'm sorry, you had a wish, and within 8 seconds, you were like, let me take away my bandmates and guy I love's free will.
Yeah. Well, and
that's pretty dark.
There is, but I think there is an argument on Daisy's side where she was like, wait, everyone just got genies and I got a wish. Like, did you honestly think that was real? In the first 8 seconds.
Oh, right.
So there is an argument to be made of, like, yes, she made an impulsive wish, but she didn't realize that this could actually be real, because why would you think it's real? Like, what would cause you to think, oh, this is actually happening and I get an actual wish? I think there's some, there's less, I think there's more, I think, maybe shame or derision to throw at her if she had made that decision, like, if she made that wish after the first 8 minutes or like 8 hours, but because it was in the first 8 seconds, like immediately after it happens, not having any understanding of what actually is happening in the world now, I think there's a little bit, a level of potential forgiveness there,
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's a beautiful redemptive story arc.
It is, yeah.
Here. I mean,
yeah. Well,
he gets all of the individual characters very satisfying endings. So we shouldn't put off talking about the ending for too long.
Yeah.
Because I mentioned in the Zero that as soon as I read issue 1, I was like, okay, I'm all in, but where are you going to end this? Like, obviously, the most obvious thing is that you have to have a perfect wish in mind that you're waiting for someone to make or someone not to make, so that you can point out how no one ever makes this one wish.
Yeah.
And then, by issue 8, it's very clear that it is known by our barkeeper and the other genies all know what the perfect wish is.
But no one's ever done it.
No one's ever done it. No one's seemingly even asked about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think the genies would tell them, like, oh yeah, it's this. So were you satisfied by that particular ending?
I was, yes, because my initial thought was, so my thought about this early on was, you can't wish for more wishes, that sort of thing, right?
Right.
But I was wondering, could you make a wish? Could you sit with your genie and say, I wish to make the last wish? Like, meaning, no matter what happens.
Oh, you take away everyone else's wish.
Well, no. Not, yeah. But the idea of, no matter what happens to anybody, whatever else wishes for, whatever happens to the world, I make the last. Can I wish to make the last wish? Does that mean I've lost my wish? Or is that still part of my same wish? Wish?
I'm thinking like the genies would, loophole wise. I think if you asked for the last wish and I granted it to you, that was your wish, and now no one else has a wish. Because that's the end of the line.
Okay, but
which actually would have been a positive thing.
But then this comes into the idea of intention, because my intention would be, I want to make the last wish after everyone has made their wishes.
Right.
So this is where reading intention would be. So my question was, could you make that wish so that no matter how, so yet you survive, that I would survive through whatever ridiculous happens out in the world, changing into an ice cream cone, dinosaur, whatever it is, nuclear fallout, that no matter what happens, I would survive to make the final wish. But that was my initial wish to do that. So would that be cheating the rules? Would that be skirting the rules? I don't know. But in the end,
let's get a lawyer in here.
Yeah, but in the end, but my point is, in the end, that's effectively what happens at the end when we have Daisy and Betty right there. That they have effectively, because of how their wishes, or the people around them, because of how the people around them utilize their wishes, they were effectively able to live to the end, no matter what. That they would end up being the end, and so it's like they got there not because of their own wishes, but because of the people around them. It was Betty's parents, and for Daisy, it was Alex and Brian, which is the idea of that triplicate was so good. But it was that idea that,
and it was also
to make it to the end, it was the people around you. Yes,
of her wishing to be loved at the beginning, and then her surviving to the end because of a love that was better than what she could have imagined. So when the reveal was that the perfect wish is, that everyone would love the way that they want to be loved. Seemingly no loopholes. The genies are appeased. They snap the world, back into place, and presumably the world can now flourish beyond 8 billion people.
Yes.
No more need for a calling. So I think I liked all of that. My thing is, they had built all of the suspense up around what that perfect wish would be, and how no one's ever made it, and how the genies know it. And I kind of wish that, one character would have said, like, okay, then I'm ready to do it. End of book. And then the readers have to all debate.
And it ends with,
what
I
was
wish.
that? Did she know it? What was it? And I mean, to me, that's the book club side of the podcast coming out, right? I would love it if they never put a button on it and
if it
never
was
said what it was.
If the ending was no ending,
right,
as it were.
Well, I mean, it would.
It's an ending. I'm sorry, it ending without definitive resolution. You know,
right?
Right.
And I think, So I would give it, like, the series as a whole, I give an A+. I've really just enjoyed myself. The specific ending of, like, that wish, I'm like, yes, high marks, B+. But defining for everyone what the perfect wish would be felt slightly a bit of an overreach for me. I was like, I would have liked to have a little more breathing room to debate.
Do you think
and discuss, because that's what I was doing the whole time as I was reading, right? I'm like critiquing everyone's wishes. I'm debating and discussing, like, what could you do that would work? And the fact that he just narrowed it down and was like, there it is.
I mean, I'll say, do you think is it the specificity of it, or
I think it was the specificity,
or is it just the idea that
on rereads now
that wish maybe comes off a little preachy or anything like that? Or is it just that it was defined at all?
I think it was the fact that it was defined at all.
Okay.
Because I think you created so big of an open question to then answer it at all. Mm-hmm. Felt a little like, you kind of shrunk the world back down.
Yeah.
But I think mass expanse that you had, because if he didn't answer it, each time you reread it, you'd be critiquing things in a different way. You'd say, like, oh yeah, well, maybe there's somebody's onto something there. Mm-hmm. Whereas now you know what the criteria is, and you just get to judge every character for their bad steps.
But I guess though. But I guess that's interesting.
And I don't feel like I'm 100% right on this. I'm just like, I think it would have felt more of a pretentious artsy ending.
It definitely would have.
To answer it.
It definitely would have. There's no question about that. But I think because the fact that it ended up being Daisy and we knew what her story was.
Perfect symmetry. Yeah. Like, from a storytelling perspective, I think philosophically I wanted.
And you would know what her wish would be. That but it was always I had a sense it was always going to end with some sort of reset. I mean, that's just what it was going to be. It was going to end that way.
Oh, it definitely had to. Yeah.
It was, so no, I see your point. It would have been it would have been more fun, but you're right. It definitely was that if they had gone that route, if the last words were just "I wish" and they were in blue, again specifically, the way they're lettered, when that you can talk to your genie all you want, but your wish, the way that's colored in blue. I love that visual, that signification there. So if it ended with just "I wish" in blue,
and
saying
that's
that
crank, right? Like, I mean,
I'm
assuming the lettering that way.
I'm assuming there's some direction there that they've talked about it, but yeah, just that choice, that stylistic choice to make it very obvious that this person is wishing, and there's no ambiguity to the audience. Again, because the idea that you can talk to your genie, you can discuss with the genie, you can figure out what you want to say, but when you're ready to go, there's a visual indicator, and I love that. But you're right, that kind of ending would have been way more arty and pretentious. And I think I have to imagine they gave it this definitive ending because they wanted they wanted to send a message. They wanted it to be something specific, and it wasn't meant to be open-ended about society or the world. That they were making a statement. Hence why they come to an actual definitive conclusion.
Yeah, and I do think the definitive conclusion, now that I'm getting pushback on it, because I think I'm now appreciating it a little bit more than I would have even before. I think the definitive ending, when I look at who the villain of the series is, right? There are a lot of people who do stupid or villainous things. Yeah. The Idea Man, ostensibly, is like your chief antagonist.
Yeah.
And he wished for people to believe in him. Mm-hmm. And that's a warped version of the perfect wish.
Yes.
He would have gotten what he wanted had he made the perfect wish.
Yes.
But he wasn't worried about him believing in other people or him loving other people. He just wanted to be the recipient of those things.
It was all
just
it was
like
actually
Daisy's first wish.
It was directed all at him. Absolutely.
Right. And the father wishing for the remnant was well, like, obviously he wanted to be loved by his wife the way that he loved her, but he wished it in a selfish way.
Yeah.
And I think what they're showing you is all of these people actually have the desire for the perfect wish and lack the foresight or the compassion or the empathy or whatever it is to manufacture.
I was saying, even Robbie's dad wishing his mother back alive. Yes, it's from a selfish standpoint, but it's not malicious. He understands. He's like, listen,
selfishness is not inherently malicious.
When we see him, obviously he's mourning. He's drunk in a bar in the middle of the day or whatever. He's like, I've been a bad father, but like it helps him, and it also helps his son. And the fact that also that they learn very quickly that she's a remnant, that she won't be around forever. But so they understand. So okay, we can accept that we're going to have a life as long as Robbie's dad's alive. So let's make the most of it. So yeah, you're right. There is a selfishness to it. I guess it's a short-sightedness, right? There is still, even though he makes that wish for both himself and his son, that there's still a short-sightedness to you could have done this thing for everybody, but there's that impulse is so directed at yourself.
Right. Because I think the fact that we phrase it as your wish.
Yeah.
Right. Intrinsically makes you think of you. First.
Mm-hmm. And one thing I really love about that they did constantly with specifically, they put the crosshairs on Alex and Brian often of like, well, you still have a wish. So if something goes wrong, specifically when Zhang's wife was giving birth, I was like, wait, is there a problem here? And he's like, well, if something goes wrong, you can wish to make it better. And it's like, well, yes, there's part of you that's like, well, yeah, that's a very selfless thing to do. But at the same time, it's like, wait a minute, well, why is that burden on me? Why is it my responsibility to help to do that? What is that what this is for? And the fact that, he threatens them, save it, all that constantly comes up, the idea of still having your wish and then being paralyzed by that wish, kind of the paralyzation of choice, that you get to a point where you can't make a wish. Because as the genie
which
says,
for me would have been in the first 8 minutes. I would have been crippled by wish paralysis within 8 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, I know for certain I would not have made a wish immediately. And then
I feel confident saying that about you. I don't know if I ever could have locked in on one.
Well, and so I don't know that either, but I would not have made a wish immediately. But then I would have seen what's happening in the world, what people are wishing for and how the world is destructed.
Right.
And then I don't know. Then that would have changed my wish. Whatever wish I would have made would have been affected by seeing the rest of the world. And it's kind of what Zhang says when he comes back. He says, make a wish about how the world is, not about how it was. So whatever wish I would have made, whenever I would have made it, it would have been in reaction to seeing how the world got screwed up by people who made their wishes right away. That's the only thing I'm absolutely certain of.
And I think the ones that were most appealing to me as I was reading the story, and this probably says something about me that I haven't analyzed enough, I would have wished to create a safe haven. Whether it's like the bar, or whether it's like the Idea Man City, or whether it's like that community stuck in the 80s where everyone was living. It's like something where it was like, hey, you know what? I don't want to impose on a lot of other people. I don't want to. I kind of want to be left alone and be able to live out and enjoy my life here. Yeah,
I would hope I'd make a wish like the bartender does. Like, the world can go to hell out there, but I'm good here. And anyone in here with me, we're all good.
What I just thought of is the old Mark Twain quote about Cincinnati. He said when the world ends, he wants to be in Cincinnati because everything that happens to the rest of the world happens 10 years later.
10 years later, yeah.
I would have wished for an actualization of Mark
Twain's. Of that Twain quote. That's good. That's good. That's good. No, because the quit it would have been a reaction. It would have been a reaction to what I saw in the world. And I would hope it would be some sort of I don't know if my wish would be for like one of the safe havens, but I think I would have sought out a safe haven. I would have definitely heard about one of these places like Fun City or whatever it is, would have heard about that. And I think I would have sought something like that out. But outside of being in the situation, I don't know exactly what I would wish for, but it would have been something like that, which is why I thought about the idea of wishing to make the last wish. Been that I'd see the world burn down and destroy and go crazy and be like, that's great. Everyone have their fun, but I'm going to wish to make the last wish. And then my wish will be like, I'll be able to watch all this and not die from it. And then I can wish it all back, the way it was. But would I make the same wish in the way that Daisy did with that same understanding? I'd like to think so, but, maybe not. Maybe you just wish it back to, hey, I wish everything back the way it was before G-Day. Okay, congrats, you've reset the world, but you haven't changed anything in the world, Right. And I think that's the specific difference with the wish that Daisy makes and the wish the genies talk about. By giving some intention to the wish of not just bringing everybody back the way it was, but bringing them back fulfilled, bringing them back a little different, bringing them back with the thing that they need, the thing that they want, making them content. I don't know if I would have had that foresight. Now, maybe I would after 800 years. Who's to say? If I had lived 800 years, maybe I do have that insight. But yeah, I can't sit here and claim that I would right now.
Yeah. And now that I've thought about it for even a few more minutes, I'm like, not only would I wish for a safe haven, I would have specifically wished for Hogwarts and all of the reality there to become, because it's like hidden from Muggles and safe. Yeah. And there's no place safer.
No place safer.
No place safer.
Actually,
than Hogwarts or a shield helicarrier.
The reason you mentioned that, it flashed on me. There's I can't remember what issue it is. Maybe in issue like 4 or 5 or something like that. There's a news report that like another Mount Doom has appeared in New Zealand. Like it's like the 9th one or something, which is just like it's a throwaway line. Just the fact that it's a throwaway line on a news report that people in New Zealand or that people are wishing that Middle Earth exists, and thus it pops up in New Zealand. That idea. Because yeah, I think there would be. I
Surely
mean,
someone in New Zealand would have wished Peter Jackson and all his work out of existence. Because there's no other
yeah.
reason that stuff would appear in New
In New,
Zealand
oh yeah, exactly. In New
specifically
Zealand, yeah,
if it
because New
weren't for
Zealand
Peter Jackson.
is Middle Earth, yeah. But yeah, you think about like the number of people. Obviously, they really can't do this in a book in a comic book, but the number of people wishing themselves to be superheroes. But then, like specifically, like what happens if you wish to be Batman? Because the whole thing about wishing to be Batman is great. You're Batman, but now your parents are dead. You know,
Right.
like that's the monkey paw situation with Batman, or the idea if you want to be Superman, that's great, but now your world is dead. So I wonder again the idea of intention. You know, in our world, there would be people who would wish to be specific superheroes. You know, like my nephew would want to be Spider-Man. Like I know that for a fact.
Right.
If he was able to make his wish at 3.5 years old, that's what he would do. So yeah. How many like licensed IP characters would you have flying around out in the world?
Well, I mean, you got to be real careful if you wish to be Daredevil.
Yeah.
Not only do you lose your sight, you have to be Catholic.
Yeah, I know. That's tough. Yeah.
So, yeah.
But you mentioning specifically Hogwarts like that, I said, I wonder, like you and probably several million other people would have wished that, you know.
But there'd be a lot of Jedi and Force users, and you know,
and there was another throwaway line where they cut to downtown Detroit burning because the bar is set in Michigan, and I think it was Alex or Brian. Someone's like, "Wait, why did you wish to set the place on fire? I thought you didn't grant those wishes." And the genie's like, "Well, no, we didn't grant that. We granted the wish that someone wanted a lightsaber. It's not our fault she didn't know how to use it and burn the place down. You know, that's on her at that point. But yeah, we can give you a lightsaber."
Although the genies say that in such a way that they're like, "Well, we knew she would do that."
Well, yeah, yes,
and so it's like, well, you can grant a wish that causes a great deal of damage.
And I think it comes back to when you reread it and you understand that this is a cycle of thing that happens, and the whole point is to cull the population, like it's population control, you know, that they know human nature is going to do stupid things. And so while they're not going to wipe out humanity, they're not going to kill everybody, they're going to do things they know are going to let people slide, you know? And again, the idea they talk about, we'll do it if we think it's funny or interesting or ironic or whatever it is, you know, like they get amusement out of it. At the same time, they can be disappointed, like when the idea man is listing off his crazy wish or whatever, the genie's like basically, screw you, I'll do it, but I hate you, you know?
Right.
You know, so they have that amount of agency, that amount of discretion. But yeah,
I like that the genies were like basically looking at the lawyers, like, you guys really suck the fun out of this.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's just, it's just what lawyers do.
Yeah, and I think that's parallel to when Robbie's dad makes the wish to bring his wife back. He does it in a way that I think is pretty clever. Then the genies clap, and they're like, "Wait, why are you clapping?" And like, listen, wishing's an art. So when it's done well, we applaud it. You know, so there's an appreciation from them for how you word a wish, how you do it. And yeah, the idea man and his lawyers are just like, no, this sucks. This is not the meaning behind it. You know, there's no art behind it. It's just kind of rote mechanism of wishing. And yeah, that's not fun for them. But they still got to do it though. You know, they have to do it. And they're bound to do it, and you know that's just that's the tension in the story there, I guess, between wishing artfully and wishing mechanically, I guess, right?
Yeah, well, and I have to say, probably another unpleasant self-revelation is that if I found out you could get applause from the genies, I would be angling to be like, well, what do they think is a good wish? Like, I want to earn their approval. So it's just troubling stuff all around on my self-reflection.
Actually, you know, now that you really think about it, I'm thinking like how many wishes would be for a lightsaber? I mean, I'm just thinking like there'd be a lot of lightsabers out there.
Yeah, I mean, and my thing is, I like, so I'm like, do you get to say? So like, I think if you wish for like the Force and the Jedi Academy and all that stuff to be real, to become real, like where it would be in a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away,
Yeah,
which would
yeah,
suck. It's like, okay, it's real, and you can just live with that knowledge now.
yeah.
Or you're like wishing for that to be real, but here, do
Well,
you have to be
again,
specific and include yourself to become a Force user, or would you have wished the Force into existence and it's as arbitrary with midichlorian distribution as it is
again,
in their
I think it comes down to intention. If you're saying if the wish would
I
be,
want to be a Jedi.
yeah, I want to be, I want the Jedi to exist, and I want to be a part of that. I want to be one of them. I want the Jedi Academy. I want to be able to go to the Jedi Academy. I think that's where intention comes in. So yeah, I think the answer would be yes. But then, yeah, then you have to then look at people who are wishing the opposite, though. You know, again, just because you have, I mean, wishing the Jedi Academy is great, but we've seen what the Jedi do. All they do is fail. So,
well, then you wouldn't be allowed to love anyone.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd have to get into all of the detachment and everything else.
And someone is definitely wishing themselves to be a Sith. Like there are definitely
there's a lot of Darth Mauls out there.
There are definitely dark Force users, and there are probably more double-ended lightsabers, or like the Inquisitors have, the ones that spin. Like there's all kinds of dark Force users out there.
Yeah, there's a Grievous out there for every.
Oh yeah.
For every Luke.
So yeah, and I guess that would fall the way they way describe it is kind of the, you know, like the first big wave is like the powers wave, you know, people who want who give themselves some ability they didn't have before, and that just wreaks mayhem and chaos. And then you know the next phase is then, I guess, that like the Haven phase, the sanctuary phase. People then find a way, well, the world is screwed here, you know, all these things are happening, so now we got to kind of hunker down and work together on it. So, but yeah, that initial powers phase would be insane. The the things people would wish for would be really unbelievable. Yeah. So yeah, I guess I would be determined to be able to find a way to live through it, you know.
What? So maybe centuries?
Well, at least,
or survive the initial wave and like live out a natural life.
Live out a natural life, at least a natural life. So if I were to, so that's why I'm just still thinking about that wish. There, it would be, it'd be reaction to what I saw, and what I saw would be the most insane bonker stuff, you know, ever. The world is falling apart, doing whatever. It would probably be some sort of, you know, this is whatever revealing about myself. I think that wish would be some sort of self-preservation. It really would be, you know, and it would be being able to exist in this world for at least a natural lifespan, and to not have the things that other people are doing and wishing for affect me. It would be, that's a fairly selfish wish. That is a selfish wish, but I have a sense it would be something of that nature.
Selfish to me if I say like, yeah, I got, you know, throw my wife and daughter and cats in there. But it's like, well, okay, but those are just the things that are in proximity to me.
Exactly.
The only reason they're getting included is because I'm selfish.
Yeah. And the idea of so there would be, if I had seen what those people in the bar, they opened the door and they saw what was out in the outside world in those first 8 seconds, 8 minutes. If that's what I saw, open my door to and saw, I have a sense that wish would be some level of self-preservation, unless I could have gotten to a sanctuary place that would have given me that preservation, you know?
Right. But that's, frequently you're trading your wish for that.
Exactly. Or like if you happen to be at the bar when he makes the wish, you know, and basically create a sanctuary like that. Or so unless by happenstance and circumstance I'm there and can have something like that, I really do feel, if I'm being completely honest, it would be, I would have looked at all the mayhem going around me and it's being like, hell no, like my wish is going to be that none of this stuff can affect me, you know?
Which nothing, is crazy smart. I mean, that's really the way to play it.
That is, I think that is, it is the most selfish kind of wish, but it is the most altruistic selfish kind of wish. Because I'm not asking to get anything. I'm not saying I want to be better or greater. I'm just saying,
it's the Ron Swanson. It's the libertarian wish, right? It's where it's like,
it's the ultimate wish of leave me alone.
Yeah. It's the wish of like, I'm not trying to take anything away from anyone.
Yeah.
Just leave me out of it.
Yeah. Just make sure that nothing that you wish or do or anything like that has any effect on me. You know, I said, it's a purely selfish wish, but I'm not hurting anybody else. And nothing you can do can hurt me. I said, yeah, it's the ultimate, just leave me alone wish.
I mean,
and said, if I'm being honest, it would be something like that, you know?
Which I think, and I mean, when I say libertarian, I mean philosophically libertarian, not libertarian party or whatever.
Yeah. And if I had any foresight on it, he would maybe include other people I know as well. You know.
Yeah, assuming it doesn't interfere with their wish, which is what we learned from Daisy.
Yeah,
which is okay, well, you can wish whatever you want and try to impact other people with it, but it may be canceled out by their wish.
Or someone else's wish. Yeah, because again, Daisy's wish was canceled out not by Brian, but it's because of where Brian was physically located, because he was in the bar. It was canceled out by something else, you know? So there are other forces at play. If I make that wish on me and me alone, then I know I'm good, you know?
Right.
So
anyway, we've revealed enough of our own depravity.
I think maybe so. But I think this book invites that, though. It naturally does, especially when they ask, well, why is it when the people ask, oh, why is it this one wish? Why not three wish? Because obviously all of the vast majority of any sort of genie or wish situation is three wishes. And the genies are basically like, you get one wish. And do you see what's going on out there? You want three of them? Are you crazy? They're basically like, you guys are idiots. You only get one, you know? And then the idea that like, oh, you put these arbitrary rules on it, and they mock Daisy behind her back, like the girl who impulsively wasted her wish on, her magical powerful wish that she didn't even earn. She wasted in 8 seconds, wants to lecture us about rules and all that, you know? So the idea that just having one wish and knowing that everyone else has a wish at the same time, I think it invites maybe not introspection, but it at least invites the reader to ask themselves what they would do. You know, I think I think if you read this book and don't spend any time being like, well, what I do, then I think you might have deeper things going on there. I think you have to examine that.
Right. I would be very concerned about the person who just has no follow-up thoughts, no follow-up questions about themselves or their behavior.
Well,
or how they see the world or what they're working for in their life now.
Yeah.
And, and I feel like it got kind of, I'm trying to think of the right word, not like fourth wall or meta or anything like that, but it was talking about a child's wish.
Yes.
And they were talking about the sanctity of it and protecting a child's wish.
There's a little,
it's really about, right. And it was like the type of wish that we all have, right?
Yes.
Where it's like,
that's about protecting a child.
Pursue and what you want to be about.
Yes.
And who your identity is. Those type of things.
Manifested in the metaphor of having this wish. Yeah.
Right. So I felt like some of those things, which could have been very crude in their execution, were just really, really well done.
No, yeah, definitely. Yeah, there is and especially with that was in what, issue 7, I think. A lot of that it was lit up issue 6, issue 7, something like that. And then at the end, when they're talking about the final wish, a lot of that could have gotten really preachy. You know, it could have gotten really sanctimonious. There could have been a whole lot of, hey, we've had a bunch of silly fun, writing and drawing all this ridiculous zany stuff.
Now we're gonna suck the joy out of it.
Yeah, but now here's the real after school special stuff here, and you're like, well, really? Like, we're gonna force that down there? But I think
would have felt
ending, betrayed. Yes, and that is not how. And having read curse words and knowing the style of Soule and Browne of finding, and you mentioned Mark Russell, and now that I think about it, oh God, it's really obvious that Russell and Pugh have a lot in common with Soule and Browne, and vice versa, and that they are able to find that little bit of silver lining, that little bit of hope and present it in a way that it's not cheesy, that it's not sanctimonious, and at the same time just skewering the rest of the world, like taking no prisoners and tearing things down, but understanding that at the heart of it, that like people or a person can be like inherently good, that there is something there is something worth, that humanity has something to worthwhile to give and deserves to exist. Has to go through some trials and tribulations, has to learn some hard lessons, has to screw up a lot, but inherently people are good. And they're able to showcase that in their books. And yeah,
or at least like people's desires are good.
Yeah.
People,
they have the capacity for it. They have the capacity for it. And then every so often that one or two of them may show that. And I'm really angry I didn't make that comp to Russell and Pugh, and what we saw, I think specifically kind of throughout the Flintstones, and that kind of sat that.
I mean, but it's definitely different than Russell and Pugh.
It's a different approach in terms of the kind of satire that was presented in something like the Flintstones. But I think the end worldview is the same. The presentation is different, but I do think the end worldview is very, very similar. The idea that, listen, this world is really screwed up, and it's screwed up in a bad way. It's screwed up in a funny way. It's screwed up in a silly way. It's screwed up in a dangerous way. There are a lot of problems here. But inherently at its core, like people. If you dig down deep enough, you can find the goodness, and then that will show up when when you really need it. There are people out there that are good and are worried about and see the larger picture and not just themselves,
Yeah. And I think that is really what the book drives at, but not in.
So it's not a preachy way.
Yes, I was going to say there's a way to do that where the whole book is cheapened by saying like, oh yeah, well we really we had this one point to make, and now that you've got it, to me that would rob all future rereads of all meaning.
Yeah, so I think so.
Oh, it's just driving to this one singular point.
Yeah. Well, because I think the one way they do that is by saying, yes, this is the ultimate wish. But what they don't do is they don't demonize all of the wishes that came before,
No, in fact, I think we're rooting for these characters in spite of themselves.
I think so. Yeah. That obviously there are some villains, like the Idea Man is a villain, but like they don't demonize Robbie's dad for bringing his wife back. They don't really demonize Robbie for becoming a superhero, wanting to protect his family, even though he has to do a lot of terrible things he doesn't want to do, but they don't demonize him for that. They chastise Daisy a little for making her wish so impulsively and so rashly, but that is kind of absolved by the way that Brian and Alex work together to form that triplet wish, that they go out of their way, I think, to show that there are a lot of ways to do it. And the wishes that you make, even though they maybe seem a little short-sighted at time, or because they're focused just on you, and maybe it's you and your kind of world, that's not a bad thing. And just because you did that, and just because you didn't wish for the world to, but like the one guy who wishes for like carbon dioxide levels to go down. What is it? The beginning of issue 2 or 3 or something like that. He's like, I'm going to save the world, and I'm not wishing for climate change to go away, but I'm going to wish that carbon dioxide CO2 levels go down to, what was it, before the pre-industrial age areas.
Yeah.
He was like, we're going to go down to that, and that's going to give us enough time to figure out how to do it right. And then the next thing he sees is like the moon eating Santa Claus, and it's like, and Gina's like, congratulations, you've solved climate change, but listen, probably not the biggest worry right now, So even the idea of someone who's trying to, I think that this guy generally is trying to wish the world into a better place, but he can't see the fact that all these other wishes are going to change the world so much that climate change doesn't matter. That maybe the person who wished dinosaurs being back and the person who wished that the earth would turn into a giant ice cream cone, maybe those things are larger concerns than than global warming and climate change at the moment. So even those that can see or think they can see altruistically in the bigger picture really can't even see what's actually happening. So I like the fact that they showed all those sides. They showed all the different kinds of wishes, and again, didn't demonize or overly valorize any one kind of wish. It was more, they really focused on the person and who the people are and how they're wishing, what they're wishing, and that's who the quote unquote bad guys were. It wasn't what kind of wish they made. It was who the actual person was. And I think that helps them. I think that gave them cover at the end. So when they say this is the one, like, quote unquote, true wish, it doesn't diminish all the wishes that came before. It's about the person that makes it more so than it is what the actual wish was.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's thoughtful writing. And I think what I love about it is they clearly knew all of where they were going at the beginning.
Had to be.
Which you have to for a limited series. A big ongoing thing where you're like, I'm not sure that they knew for sure where they're, like, what the beats would be for Undiscovered Country, for instance, from Charles Soule. I think that was about creating a world, creating an experience, creating characters, giving yourself enough space to create more room for the world to live in, see how long it goes, see what happens.
And this series could have done that too. You could have had infinite things, and maybe it was just like, okay, the first arc is this crazy superhero arc, and we're going to tell all these weird stories about that, But then,
there's still room to tell pocket stories. Anytime it's glossing over 8 decades.
Yeah, well, exactly.
You could just go follow any other set of characters in that time.
You could.
The problem is, since you have this definitive end and everything ends with this one wish that no one was making, I think a lot of those other stories would lose their interest.
I agree with that entirely, because those stories then become about the wishes, not about the people wishing them. Because all the people we follow, we're following people that were in that bar. Those are our characters we follow through. And it's not about the wishes they're making or anything like that. It's about them and their journeys, what they're doing, how they're navigating the world. It comes about the characters, not about the wishes. If you had a whole series, a whole arc following Robbie as Sunman, and there's a whole thing, and you're just following all of the adventures of him going around with his superhero group and all this stuff, then that's what the book becomes about. It's not about the nature of the wishes and what that means. You're just following the end result. And I agree. I think that would be less interesting. Not saying you couldn't do that. It's entirely possible if you could. But
it's just a fundamentally different book.
It is 100% completely different book. By having the end and knowing what it was going to be. Maybe they didn't have each specific issue out, but I'm sure they had I'd have to imagine they pretty quickly came up with it's 8 issues, and each issue is going to be a factor of 8 of some sort of different timeline,
Right.
And so
it had to be.
That's super quick. You get that. And so right then you start knowing how to parcel things out, and then you fill in the details from there. But I can't imagine this was something they went into, like actual creation of the comic going in that blind. It wraps up too well. It comes to too cohesive of an ending, like everything comes together so well and so well. It not only meshes too well together, it feels right. He's talking about, it doesn't feel preachy. It doesn't feel unearned. It doesn't feel saccharine or cheesy. It comes together at the right time in the right way. And that feels because like it was planned the whole way through. They knew what the beats were going to be. And I think you only get that because they knew it was going to be a limited miniseries.
Right.
Yeah.
Which just goes to my love of the limited miniseries, the OGN.
The complete story. The complete story.
Yeah, right. Anything that gets in does what it came to do and gets out, basically.
Yeah. Whether that's 3 issues, 6 issues, 12 issues, 24 issues, 30 issues. I think you and I are aligned on that. Just being able to have an end. As much as I love I still love the crazy ongoing, 70, 80 years of superhero characters. That's great. I love Saga. It's going to go 108 issues. I can't wait for that. But I also, give me
it's
a
nice
story.
To have some closure every once in a while.
It's nice. Yeah, you can pick up a book and just say, I'm gonna read this whole thing. Okay, whether it's 30 issues or 12 issues, I know this is a complete story. I'm gonna get everything that these creators wanted to get out of the story they're trying to tell, with no other outside influences of, well, maybe extend a few more issues, or maybe cut it back a few more issues.
Right.
You're getting that story. You're gonna get in. You're gonna get out. It's going to be satisfying. And I think 8 Billion Genies is that. I think I mentioned it last week. I think it's an incredibly satisfying ending. I think it is,
which we've also talked about how rare that is.
It is. I think Paper
not
Girls
just
is
in comics, but in all forms of
all storytelling. Yeah, I think we started with Paper Girls, and I think that is one of the most satisfying endings in all of recent comics in my mind, in terms of how they wrap that up. And of course, that had a lot more runway to work with, in terms of a lot more issues there. I would say it's 8 issues. They could have planned that pretty easily in terms of how we're going to start, what's the middle, what's the end. Series like Paper Girls, 30 issues, a lot more things in play, a lot more variables to get through. But a miniseries like this, I think, is the perfect kind of ending. I can't think of anything I'd want differently out of this ending.
Yeah, and the more that we've talked about it, the more I've come around on it.
Yeah,
I think it was just one of those scenarios where
you didn't think it was a bad ending. You just thought,
no, I didn't think it was a bad.
It could have been more interesting for you, right? You're saying,
yes, yeah, and that's really all I'm saying, is that for me, I would have liked for the author to pose the question and not really weigh in as much on it. Yeah. And that's totally subjective, and that says much more about me than it does about the book.
Sure. But they still could have done your ending. They still probably would have needed to have what the definitive ending was. I would imagine so. I
would be very mad if they didn't have an answer in their head, because then then you're getting into like lost territory.
Yeah.
So it's like, we were just asking questions for the sake of it. We didn't actually have any ideas.
Yeah. So they could.
Like, no. I need you to have an idea.
You'd want them to have the answer, just not to have specified it explicitly in the,
especially with all the breadcrumbs that are in the book for the answer.
Sure.
It's like, I would have had a lot of fun saying like, I know, and only I know, because I figured it out, rather than like, I know because I read the last issue and they told me.
You say, sure.
Which is,
again, it's still, I still think it's a great ending. I think you and I both really like the ending, but I see your point there. There's more room for fun discussion if they left it open like that.
Yeah. Which there's plenty of fun discussion without it, as we've just demonstrated.
Yep. Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, well, that's all I have in my notes on the book. Obviously, if we were like a beat by beat podcast, there'd be a lot to talk about. But we've hit all the major characters, all the major arcs, and certainly I think the main point, and we've revealed all of our personal flaws.
Yeah, definitely. This is
in what our wishes would be.
We'd rather talk on a podcast than go to therapy. Right? That's what it is.
Yeah, it's cheaper. I'm not sure it's cheaper, but
it may not be. Who knows?
It's more cathartic to you.
Not given the amount I spent on comics, it's probably definitely not cheaper.
Well, comics is the therapy. Yeah, buying them. But I was going to say, the problem is I could go to a therapist, but it would have to be such a niche therapist where I could be like, well, how like this one page in this one book. Yeah, that's how I'm feeling right now. And they'd be like, what are you talking about?
It was this double splash page that really screwed me up. I've been thinking about it for weeks, and
like this one issue of the Flintstones really got to me.
It really, you know what? When I first read that issue, that comic, when I first read that, those issues absolutely did. I had to stop and think about the world. Absolutely, you can do that. But 8 Billion Genies makes you think. It makes you think about what you would do if you had that wish. So,
all right. Well, we will see you next time. We do not know yet what that will be, but I assure you it will be another Zero episode telling you what to read and giving you plenty of notice so that you can join us the following Thursday for another book club discussion. In the meantime, find us at storiedarcs.com. twitter.com/storied arcs, if that still exists by the time this comes out.
Never know.
Instagram, I think pretty reliable, storied arcs, and we're pretty consistent posting there. But Twitter's easy to find us. Our website will always be good. You can email us, fill out the contact form there if you've got discussion or anything that you would like to request that we discuss in the future. Twitter, website, great ways to do that. In the meantime, please give us a 5-star review, whether you're listening on Spotify or iTunes or Pocket Casts or wherever. Just helps get the word out about the podcast. And of course, even simpler than that is hitting the little share button and texting this to a friend and say, hey, I think you'd really like 8 Billion Genies, and listen to how messed up these guys are.
So we'd appreciate it.
Anyway, thank you for listening. We will see you next time.
Peace.